It's been 2 years since a homeless girl named Amara returned a billionaire's lost wallet and changed her life forever. She passed the test. She earned his trust. And today, Amara is no longer on the streets. She's now the powerful right hand of billionaire Mr. Agu, managing empires, living in luxury, and holding a future most people only dream of. But what if it doesn't last? Because someone is coming. Daniel Okoro, Mr. Agu's biological son, and he's not happy. He sees Amara as a threat to everything he believes is rightfully his. Now he's back, and he'll do anything, lie, cheat, sabotage, to bring her down. Will Amara survive this storm, or will her past rise up and destroy the very future she fought so hard to build? Grab your popcorn, sit tight, because this story is packed with suspense, betrayal, and a shocking twist you'll never see coming. Let's dive in. Meanwhile, if you're just tuning into this channel, please kindly subscribe and give this story a thumbs up. A ragged sheet of Harmattan dust floated over Murtala Mohammed International Airport the morning Daniel Okoro re-entered Nigeria, but it could not mute the static that hummed in every quarter as soon as his name appeared on the arrivals board. Daniel strode through customs like a man who owned the runway, feet in crocodile skin loafers, jacket of midnight velvet, sunglasses large enough to hide midnight thoughts. A paparazzo snapped a single flash. Daniel smiled the practiced smile of someone who had been both darling and disgrace of London's tabloids. He carried no luggage but a carry-on embossed with the initials D.O., because men like him believed the world was already carrying everything else they needed. Outside, his chauffeur awaited beside a black Mercedes Maybach. The driver bowed. "Welcome home, Oga Daniel." Daniel removed his glasses. Home? He let the word linger on his tongue like bitter wine. We'll see. 2 hours later, Ikoyi, Amara Rose Nwachukwu stood on the marble landing of number 12 Milverton Crescent, clutching a stack of reports to her chest. At 19, she had grown into her new world with astonishing speed. Power suit sharp, voice steady, eyes still hungry to do good. Yet a thread of restlessness tugged at her this morning, as if the mansion's air, usually scented with jasmine and quiet purpose, had thickened with an omen. Behind her, the double doors swung open. She turned and froze. The stranger ascending the steps looked carved from some expensive offense. Same angular cheekbones as Mr. Agu, same hawkish brows, but his smile bent like a scythe. 2 security men trailed him, hefting suitcases. Amara felt something primitive bristle inside her, the instinct a gazelle feels when the watering hole suddenly falls silent. Their eyes locked. His lingered cool, appraising. Then, dismissal. He brushed past her without a word, leaving only the faint scent of oud and jet fuel. Amara found Mr. Agu in the study, standing beneath the portrait of Mama Nkem, as if seeking counsel from his late mother's painted gaze. His shoulders looked heavier than usual. "Sir, there's a visitor." "I know," he said, voice and flat. "My son has returned." Son. The syllable struck her like stray voltage. In 2 years of mentorship, Mr. Agu had never once mentioned a child. She had assumed his fortune had only board members and charitable foundations as heirs. Daniel sent no warning, Agu continued, seating himself yet not relaxing. But gossip travels faster than planes. He must have heard some rumors. Amara's heart kicked. She knew exactly which rumors. That the billionaire had drafted a new will naming a certain former street girl as principal beneficiary, not for the money but to solidify her control of the community impact arm that now stretched across 5 states. Mr. Agu had laughed those rumors off at breakfast last week, yet Lagos gossip was kerosene. One spark could set an empire ablaze. There was a knock. The door opened without permission. Daniel stepped in, sweeping his sunglasses onto his head. "Dad," the word balanced between affection and accusation. Mr. Agu rose slowly. "Daniel." They stared. 2 generations of iron wills clashing in silence. Daniel spread his arms as though the room were a camera. "Aren't you going to hug your only child?" "My child returns when my child repents," Agu replied. "Why are you here?" Daniel's grin tightened. "To come home. To change. You always said the door was open." "The door," Agu said, leads into responsibility, not revelry. Amara felt invisible, yet Daniel's gaze flicked to her. You must be the famous wallet girl. She bristled. Daniel chuckled. London's buzzing about you. Dad's charity case turned golden girl. Congratulations. His compliment carried thorns. She inclined her head, voice calm. Welcome back, sir. Daniel turned to his father. You see, I can be civil. He clasped his hands dramatically. Give me one more chance, Dad. Agu's eyes narrowed. You squandered 40 million naira the last chance I gave you. You turned philanthropy into a publicity stunt. And I regret it, Daniel said softly, stepping closer. But if you've forgiven the streets, he jerked his chin toward Amara, maybe forgive your own blood. Agu exhaled, the weight of years etched into the lines around his mouth. Amara's chest tightened. She could feel his conflict like a storm cloud. She took a step forward. Sir, she said quietly, everyone deserves redemption once. She met Daniel's eyes, searching for any glimmer of sincerity, finding only mirrored glass. Perhaps let him start small, supervised. Agu studied her, admiration and concern warring behind his gaze. Finally, he nodded. Very well. You'll join Okoro Global as Deputy Finance Controller under Amara's oversight. Daniel's smile cracked, but he bowed theatrically. Whatever you say, Father. Later that night, Amara paused outside the guest wing. Laughter spilled from Daniel's suite, clinking glasses, a woman's giggle, Afro house pounding from hidden speakers. His repentance was already stained with neon. She knocked. The music dulled. Daniel opened the door, half-buttoned, perfume and champagne mist swirling behind him. What, deputy? He drawled. She steadied her voice. The company handbook prohibits visitors after hours. Daniel leaned on the frame, a predator at play. Relax, tomorrow I'll buy the handbook. Tomorrow you'll read it, she countered, because people are watching. He chuckled, but the laugh never reached his eyes. Tell me, Amara, do you kneel at his bedside too? Daddy's perfect daughter? Color flamed across her cheeks. I earned my place. Don't waste yours. The smile vanished. How dare a former gutter girl lecture me on waste? He stepped closer. She smelled the alcohol. Remember this, blood outranks charity. You'll regret humiliating me. She refused to back away. Integrity outranks everything. Their stares locked like swords. Finally, Daniel straightened, smirk returning. We'll see. He shut the door with a soft click, more menacing than a slam. Down the hall, Mr. Agu watched from shadow. His face was unreadable, but his mind raced with calculations no spreadsheet could hold. He had promised Mama Incam on her deathbed that he would measure men by conscience, not lineage. Tonight, destiny placed father, son, and found daughter on a delicate scale, and the needle quivered. He whispered into the empty corridor, as if briefing the portrait that waited in the study. Let the test begin. None would hear those words but the walls, not Amara, whose heart pounded with foreboding. Not Daniel, already pouring another drink. Only the silent mansion understood that by inviting the prodigal home, Mr. Agu had opened a door not just to forgiveness, but to a reckoning that could crown integrity or consume them all. Monday at Okoro Global's Lagos headquarters began with a sunrise press conference no one on the PR team had scheduled. Daniel Okoro simply appeared, swept a startled receptionist aside, and commandeered the marble lobby as if it were his private stage. Cameras glinted off the building's mirrored facade while reporters scrambled from idling danfos. Daniel stood beneath a chandelier shaped like a soaring eagle, flashbulbs stroking his velvet blazer. Gentlemen, ladies, he flashed a megawatt grin. Nigeria loves a comeback, doesn't she? My father has welcomed me home, and I am humbled to serve. Expect innovations, expansions. Applause erupted, helped along by the handful of social media influencers Daniel had flown in overnight. His words sparkled like imported champagne, each phrase rehearsed to bury the headlines that had chased him from Mayfair. Trust fund tycoon torches, L600,000 at casino, oligarch's heir evicted from penthouse after week-long rave. Tucked to one side of the crowd, Amara watched, arms folded. She wore a charcoal suit and the expression of someone listening for snakes in long grass. When the flash frenzy faded, she stepped forward. Thank you all for coming. Mr. Okoro will answer deeper financial questions after he's fully briefed by our compliance team. Daniel's smile cooled a degree. Of course, Deputy. Later, 9:45 a.m., 19th floor boardroom. The monthly strategy meeting opened with Mr. Agu at the head of the teak table, directors arrayed like chess pieces. Daniel slid into the vacant seat labeled Deputy Finance Controller, chair leather barely creased before he propped designer brogues on the polished surface. Amara, seated 2 spots away, pretended not to notice. She was reviewing last quarter's community housing ledgers when Daniel leaned across the gap to CFO Mrs. Oni. Tell me, Ma, he murmured just loud enough, where do we hide the real profits? Swiss? Seychelles? Chuckles rippled. Mrs. Oni bristled. Before she could respond, Agu's voice cut through the room. Feet down, Daniel. No echo, no tremor, just authority honed to a scalpel. Daniel obeyed slowly, smirk intact. Agu continued. Our next item, Rose Gardens Phase 2. Amara will present. Spotlight swung. Amara Rose steadied her breath and walked to the holo display. Schematics bloomed in 3D, pastel row houses, solar rooftops, microloans breathing life into low-income districts. As of last week, she said, pointer slicing data in midair, construction is 48% complete, under budget, ahead of schedule. We've secured an ESG grant that, Daniel yawned theatrically. Admirable. But where's the profit? Philanthropy's nice. Shareholders prefer dividends. A murmur. Amara met his eyes. Corporate citizenship raises our credit rating. That lowers borrowing cost, increasing dividends. Mrs. Oni nodded. Several directors murmured agreement. Daniel's jaw flexed. Agu tapped his pen once. Any further questions? Silence. Good. Meeting adjourned. Midweek, the masquerade begins. By Wednesday, Daniel was a whirlwind. Handshakes in open office, self-filmed TikToks praising hard-working Nigerians. Promises of Friday pizza parties. Staff, starved of glamour, ate it up. He installed a dartboard in the finance department, ordered neon beanbags, replaced the corporate screensaver with his own signature in gold cursive. But beneath the glitter, numbers began to bleed. Amara saw the first wound that afternoon while reconciling expense authorizations. An urgent payment of 18 million naira to Lagoon Renaissance Events. Coded strategy retreat. The retreat, she knew, was 3 months away and usually cost 1/10 of that. She walked straight to Daniel's glass-walled cubicle. He lounged, scrolling through an Instagram feed of yacht parties. Daniel, this invoice, approved, he said, not looking up. For what? We haven't booked a venue? He clicked a video of women popping champagne. Down payment, early bird discount. Early bird? Amar's voice sharpened. Or early vulture? He swiveled, smile thin as sheet ice. Watch your tone. I'm finance oversight. My tone is company policy. We require 3 supplier quotations. Daniel rose, shutting the door. His voice dropped. You think Dad gave you authority over me? You're a PR story with legs. I'm blood. Sign the payment. She met his stare, heartbeat drumming. I won't. He leaned closer. Then I'll make you wish you had. Thursday, 11:57 p.m. The hidden party from a borrowed janitor's keycard. Amara slipped onto the 23rd floor observation deck, following bass that vibrated through concrete. She cracked the service door. Daniel's retreat deposit had materialized into a rooftop rave. Lasers slashing the night. DJs flown from Cape Town. Models lounging in infinity pool light. Waiters toted trays of caviar canapes. Lagoon Renaissance Events logos printed on napkins like taunts. Amara filmed 30 seconds on her work tablet. Blurred faces, Daniel popping Cristal, stacks of company cash peeled like plantain. Then she stepped back into darkness, heart splintered between outrage and foreboding. Friday dawn, an unexpected directive. At 7:00 a.m., Mr. Agu's personal assistant summoned Amara to the mansion. She arrived with eyes red from sleepless calculation. Agu stood in the courtyard garden, clipping white hibiscus. He didn't glance up. You look troubled. She exhaled. Sir, we need an audit of Daniel's costs now. Agu clipped another bloom. Patience often reveals truth better than confrontation. Sir, if we wait, there may be nothing left to save. Now he met her gaze, and the steel in his eyes startled her. Do what your conscience requires. But remember, sometimes a building must lean before the engineer proves why its foundation matters. His words were a riddle she could not solve, yet obedience to conscience had carried her from gutter to boardroom. She would not betray it now. Friday, 4:05 p.m., seat of sabotage. The weekly finance team briefing convened in a smaller conference room. Daniel strolled nerfame, shouted in late, sliding a USB into the projector. Up flashed a gaudy slide deck titled Operation Phoenix, Rebranding for Profit. Step 1, he announced, freeze all community projects. Redirect spend to brand exposure, concerts, influencer partnerships, exclusive lounges. Murmurs, confusion, excitement. Amara stood. Those projects provide homes, sanitation, schools. Daniel cut her off. Which scores 0 on glamour? Investors follow excitement. Any questions? She raised a hand. He ignored it. Minutes later, he dismissed the meeting and sauntered out, leaving colleagues buzzing with adrenaline and unease. Weekend whispers. By Saturday, tabloids ran Daniel's lobby speech under the headline, Prodigal Prince Returns to Rescue Empire. Instagram reels of his rooftop party trended with the hashtag Phoenix Rises. Employees posted selfies with him, captions dripping hero worship. Amara scrolled through the feed, dreading how perception could strangle truth. Still, numbers did not lie. She dug into the ledger, cross-checking authorizations against bank timestamps. The deeper she dug, the louder the alarms. Rapid-fire withdrawals, ghost vendors, phony consultancy fees. At midnight, she compiled a dossier and attached her rooftop footage. Thumb hovering over send to chairman, she hesitated, remembering Agu's clipped hibiscus and cryptic parable. Had he asked her to wait or test her courage? Integrity, she decided, meant speaking before rot hardened. She pressed send. Sunday sunset, the serpent strikes. Amara was reviewing budgets at home when her phone buzzed with an internal memo. Urgent audit notice. Allegations of financial impropriety have surfaced against Miss Amara N. Pending investigation, all supervisory privileges are suspended. Report to HR Monday, 0902. D.O., Acting Deputy FC. Her breath caught. Daniel had moved first, turning the blade she forged against her own back. Outside, the sky flamed crimson, as if Lagos itself bled. Amara closed her laptop, spine straightening despite the tremor in her hands. The snake had struck, but the charm was fracturing. And somewhere behind mansion walls, a father who clipped white hibiscus waited for proof that foundations mattered more than fireworks. The test, she realized, had just begun in earnest. The atmosphere inside Okoro Global's HR department on Monday morning was as cold and clinical as an operating theater. The receptionist barely looked at Amara when she entered. Her ID pass was collected in silence. Her name had already been removed from the company's access board. She wasn't led to her usual office or even to her department's conference room. She was led to a small, windowless room on the 3rd floor. It had no paintings, no refreshments, no welcome smile, just a chair and a white envelope already waiting on the table. Suspended, indefinitely, pending investigation. No one said those words aloud, but every glance in the hallway screamed them. Amara sat still for several seconds, her mind swimming. She opened the envelope slowly, trying not to let her hands tremble. It was all there in sterile legal phrasing. Due to serious allegations regarding mismanagement of project funds and breach of procurement policies, you are hereby relieved of all supervisory duties pending the outcome of a full internal audit. Her chest tightened. Mismanagement, procurement. She scanned the appendix. Daniel had filed a formal complaint accusing her of redirecting N37 million from the Rose Gardens Phase 2 project into unauthorized sub-projects. He claimed she had bypassed the board's approval process and colluded with a private construction firm to inflate costs. It was a masterfully written lie, and worst of all, it included a forged signature that looked exactly like hers. She wanted to scream, to storm Mr. Agu's office and demand the truth. But she remembered his voice, so soft it still echoed in her chest. Sometimes a building must lean before the engineer proves why its foundation matters. Amara closed her eyes and inhaled slowly. Outside the HR wing, whispers slithered through the building like smoke from a slow fire. She's been suspended? Daniel reported her himself, I heard. Wow, so all this time she was acting clean? They said she stole millions. I knew her story was too good to be true. From the gutter to the penthouse, then back again. Amara walked past them all, her head held high, but her heart was in pieces. Not just because of the lies, but because the one person she trusted above all had not defended her. Where was Mr. Agu? Had he believed Daniel? Had he doubted her? Or was he watching? That evening she packed her desk into a cardboard box. She took only what belonged to her, a framed photo of Mama and Kem that Mr. Agu had gifted her on her first anniversary at the company, her mother's faded Bible, and the original concept drawings of the affordable housing initiative that had launched her career. As she exited the building, the security guards who once greeted her with cheerful "Madam Amara" only nodded silently. Even her driver had been reassigned. She walked to the gate on foot. Rain started to fall, thin, sharp drops like needles. It reminded her of her first night under the kiosk roof in Edeniji Adele. And yet, strangely, she did not feel broken. She felt tested. That night, as lightning flared above the Lagos skyline, Amara sat in her small apartment and replayed the past few weeks in her mind. Daniel's arrival, his flashy media antics, the rooftop party, the forged invoice. The moment she sent the report to Mr. Agu, did he read it? Did he believe her? She wanted to reach out, but something told her not to. She needed to endure this test in silence. Just as she had walked from Balogan Market to Ikoyi with nothing but a wallet and a whisper of conscience, she would endure this exo with dignity. She opened her Bible and read the passage her mother used to quote whenever everything felt unfair. He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. She closed her eyes. She whispered, "Let my table come." Meanwhile, Daniel celebrated. In a rooftop bar in Victoria Island, he clinked champagne glasses with 3 social media influencers and a deputy commissioner's daughter. "Babe, you're the real lion of Lagos," one giggled. "You actually kicked that girl out?" Daniel smirked. "She forgot one thing. You don't touch power unless it belongs to you." They laughed and toasted. His phone buzzed. It was a business blog headline with his photo. "Prince of Okoro Global cleans house. New era begins." He smiled, satisfied. What he didn't know was that the bartender who served him had a body camera, that the car that picked him up was ordered by Mr. Agu's personal assistant, that every step he had taken was being tracked, not by enemies, but by his father. At the mansion, Mr. Agu stood by his study window, watching the storm. He held Amar's report in one hand and Daniel's accusations in the other. The former was detailed, humble, filled with timelines and documents. The latter was flashy, confident, filled with redacted evidence and vague blame. He had received both on the same day. He had said nothing to either of them since. He had fired Amara not because he believed Daniel, but because he needed Daniel to believe he had won. In the shadows of deception, true character would surface. His mind echoed with Mama Nokem's voice. "A son is not made in the womb. A son is made in the fire." He sighed. "This fire will either burn him clean or reveal what must be cast away." Amara didn't sleep that night, not because of fear, but because something in her spirit told her that silence was not absence, that pain was not abandonment, that truth, though slow, always rises. She sat at her window and wrote in her journal, "Integrity is not always vindicated immediately, but it is never forgotten." And as dawn broke over Lagos, Amara rose. She dressed sharply. She reviewed her own ledgers, and she began building the case that would clear her name, not just to the company, but to the world. Because when a snake sheds its skin in public, the world deserves to see what lies beneath. And this time, she would be ready. The elevator ride to the 25th floor felt like a descent into the underworld, though it was going up. Amara stood at the far end of the mirrored lift, arms folded tightly over her chest, her charcoal blazer pristine, but her spirit fraying at the seams. A junior staffer beside her stole glances, as if trying to decide whether to offer pity or stay silent. No one spoke. The ding of the elevator doors felt louder than it should. When they opened, a hush blanketed the executive floor, an eerie contrast to the usual buzz of Acoro Global's busiest morning hour. Everyone had heard the rumors. Today was Judgment Day. In the grand conference hall, the board of directors had assembled early, flanked by managers and department heads. A full media team was stationed at the rear. Daniel had insisted on transparency. He wanted an audience. Amara entered with quiet steps. No security flanked her. No allies trailed behind. She looked to the high table for a sign from Mr. Agu, but he was unreadable, stoic as ever, dressed in a dark blue caftan, fingers interlocked. Daniel, in contrast, lounged like a king beside him, wearing a tailored ash-gray suit with lapels that shimmered slightly under the lights. He wore a smug grin that curled at the edges like burnt paper. Mr. Agu stood slowly, his deep voice slicing through the silence. "We are gathered today to address a matter of grave concern, alleged financial misconduct under the Rose Gardens Phase 2 program." Cameras clicked. A few gasps. Amara stared straight ahead. Her face revealed nothing. "As chairman, I must ensure the integrity of this company remains untarnished, no matter whose name is involved." He turned his head, just slightly, toward Amara. "Ms. Amara Rose Nwachukwu, do you have anything to say before we proceed?" A microphone was slid in front of her. She rose. Her palms were sweating, but her voice didn't betray it. "Yes, sir. I will say only this. I did not steal from this company. Every naira I handled has been accounted for. I submitted a full report 2 weeks ago detailing fraudulent activities I witnessed. Activities which now seem to have been twisted against me." She looked Daniel in the eye. He blinked first. She turned back to the board. "If integrity is still a currency here, then let it speak louder than accusation." A few directors nodded slightly. Others avoided her gaze. Daniel stood. "I understand her desperation," he said with a mock sympathetic tone. "She came from the streets. She's tasted luxury now. Maybe the temptation was too much. But we cannot let sentiment blind us to truth." He waved toward a large screen. "Let's begin with evidence." A projector flashed. What followed was a well-crafted presentation. Invoices, emails, even bank transfers, all linked to Amara's name. Some were altered records. Others were taken out of context. All were lies, but they were lies dressed in data. Daniel narrated the slideshow himself like a courtroom prosecutor. "Here we see 14.2 million naira wired to a private vendor with no known affiliation to the housing program. And here's the signature, her signature, identical to the one on her employment contract." Some heads turned toward Amara. Some frowned. Others watched blankly, like spectators at a slow-motion accident. Daniel clicked to the final slide. "Ladies and gentlemen, I wish it weren't true, but it's time we admit it. She's not who we thought she was." Silence fell like a blade. Mr. Agu stood again, and the entire room leaned in as he cleared his throat. "Pending full audit verification, I hereby place Ms. Amara Nwachukwu on administrative leave from Acoro Global Holdings, effective immediately." A stunned hush blanketed the room. It was done. The girl who once returned a billionaire's wallet, who had risen from the streets with only integrity as her ladder, was being cast out. Publicly. Amara didn't flinch. She only bowed her head and whispered, "Thank you, sir," then turned and began walking toward the exit. "Wait," Daniel called behind her, his voice thick with the poison of triumph. "One last thing." She stopped. Daniel walked slowly up to her, microphone still clipped to his lapel. "You know," he said, not even pretending to be sincere now, "when you first arrived, everyone thought you were a miracle, a Cinderella story. But deep down, you were just like everyone else, grabbing what you could before the gate closed." Amara stared at him, her jaw set. Her eyes didn't blink. "You think you've won," she said softly, "but you only buried your own future." He leaned in closer. "Your future's already buried, sweetheart." He turned to the cameras. "Let this be a lesson to every fake Samaritan. Money changes people, even the so-called honest ones." The cameras caught it all. That evening, the news broke like thunder. Amara Nwachukwu suspended over alleged embezzlement at Okoro Global. From street to scandal, the rise and fall of the wallet girl. Daniel Okoro leads cleanup at father's empire. Social media was brutal. Knew she was too good to be true. All that story about returning a wallet was probably PR. Daniel for CEO jar, at least he's got style. But the ones that hurt most were silent. People Amara had mentored didn't speak up. Partners she'd fought for sent no texts. Even junior staff who once admired her didn't come forward. She was alone again, just as she had been under that kiosk 2 years ago. Only this time the fall was from much higher. But inside the mansion another story was playing out. Mr. Agu sat alone in his study watching the footage again. Daniel's smugness, Amara's composure. The moment Daniel claimed she had changed, he hit pause. Amar's face filled the screen. Calm, steady, unbroken. He smiled faintly. She passed. Then he turned to a secure drawer in his desk, unlocked it, and removed a brown folder marked Phase 3, Final Test. Daniel Okoro. The real audit had already been conducted. The real records, the original invoices, all cataloged. The fake documents Daniel had submitted, all watermarked by a hired mole on Mr. Agu's payroll. Every lie was a seed, and Daniel had watered them generously. But still, the timing wasn't right. Not yet. Let him bask. Let the snake dance, thinking no one saw. Because when the final blow landed, it would land with thunder. In her apartment, Amara sat on her bed with her journal in her lap. The pain was deep, but the peace was deeper. She wrote only one sentence that night. Let him mock me today, for the truth has not yet spoken. And as Lagos flickered beneath her window, somewhere in the city's breathless night, destiny began to stir. Because you can fire a name from a company, but you cannot erase a name written in integrity. By the next morning, Daniel Okoro had transformed the scandal into a spectacle, and himself into a messianic figure of reform. His image flooded the media. Daniel Okoro, the son who saved Okoro Global. Wallet girl exposed, Okupin, chairman's son cleans house. Daniel read each headline with unfiltered pride, sipping champagne on his private balcony like a man who believed his own myth. The walls of his penthouse suite in Victoria Island echoed with laughter, bass music, and the clink of expensive glasses. 3 influencers live-streamed the moment he raised a toast. To power, he declared, raising his glass, and to the end of fairy tales. Lagos belongs to lions, not street girls with good sob stories. The girls giggled. His phone buzzed. Another news alert. Another quote from him, something he hadn't even said. It didn't matter. As far as the world was concerned, Amara was a fallen idol, and Daniel, he was reborn. At the office, Daniel wasted no time asserting himself. He renamed the executive boardroom the Phoenix Chamber, rebranded the Community Development Division into Prestige and Partnerships, canceled 3 school building initiatives in rural Benue, 2 unprofitable, suspended all scholarships pending image evaluation. He replaced the office art with celebrity portraits, himself shaking hands with governors, celebrities, and fashion icons. In every image, Amara had been cropped out. And then came the announcement, a massive 3-day summit to be hosted in Echo Hotel and Suites. Top executives, investors, media, fashion icons. Theme, Renaissance of Power, Okoro Global in the New Age. The poster was everywhere. At the center stood Daniel, arms crossed, beneath a golden phoenix. But behind the smoke and mirrors, cracks had already begun to form. The financial reports were late. Key investors weren't returning calls. The head of compliance quietly resigned. On Tuesday morning, Daniel strolled into a marketing meeting 30 minutes late, wearing a beige agbada with gold embroidery and Versace loafers. He dropped into the leather seat like a king. Let's start with growth projections, he said lazily. The marketing director, Mr. Bamidele, shifted uncomfortably. Actually, sir, projections have slowed. 3 partners from the UAE paused funding. They expressed concern. Daniel sat up. Concern? About what? Well, Bamidele cleared his throat. The perception of instability. Since Amara left, they say the foundation initiatives have been inconsistent. Some said they only partnered with Okoro Global because of her leadership. Daniel slammed a palm on the table. Are you saying people preferred a maid to the blood son of Agu Okoro? No, sir. I'm only saying perhaps we should reach out to Ms. Amara, clarify things privately. Absolutely not, Daniel snapped. She's a traitor. She's been discredited. She stole from us. But sir, another staffer dared, the audit hasn't concluded, and she hasn't made any public statement. Daniel's eyes flared. You people are fools. If she was innocent, would she be silent? He stormed out. Back at the mansion, Mr. Agu sat at his study desk, a single surveillance screen glowing before him. It showed Daniel in the penthouse that night, replaying footage of himself at the summit launch, zooming in on his own face. The chairman leaned back in his chair, speaking softly as if to the wind. Even mirrors crack when pride stares too long. Beside him lay a thick folder marked Confidential. Phase 4. Daniel's final days were being logged. CCTV footage, recordings, internal whistleblower reports, all compiled. And Amara, still silent, still watching, still trusting. Meanwhile, Amara spent her days in reflection and preparation. She stayed off social media. She didn't respond to the rumors. She didn't issue a statement. Instead, she poured herself into something greater. At a quiet cafe in Yaba, she met with 2 legal consultants, experts in financial forensics. At night, she worked on her own independent audit, retracing every decision she had made, every document she had signed. She compiled screenshots, timelines, voice notes. The deeper she looked, the more she realized Daniel's embezzlement wasn't just greed, it was precision. Fake invoices, shell accounts, bribes, parties coded as mental health summits. By the end of the week, her report was 68 pages long. She didn't send it. She simply filed it away, waiting, because she believed something that Daniel didn't. Truth is not rushed. It is revealed. Back at the company, Daniel hosted another press event. This time he stood beneath a large banner with the words, Power by Birthright, Leadership by Legacy. I am pleased to announce that next week, my father will name his successor as CEO of Okoro Global Holdings, he declared with a grin. Gasps, applause. Any guesses? A reporter called out. Daniel only smiled and straightened his collar. Let's just say it's long overdue. That night, he sat with 2 of his friends in a private club in Lekki. Bro, you're going to be the CEO of $1 billion empire. Just like that? Daniel raised his glass. The girl's gone. The board is confused. My father's tired. This was always mine. One of them laughed. You should throw a party the night before the announcement. I already am, Daniel said. 60 girls, 2 DJs, champagne fountains. I'm calling it the coronation night. They laughed, drank, danced. But none of them saw the pair of eyes watching from the upper level. Eyes that belonged to one of Mr. Agu's loyal aides. The next day, Mr. Agu called a private meeting. A closed-door board session. Only directors, no cameras, no press, no staff. Daniel wasn't invited. It was the calm before the storm. The tension inside the Okoro Global Conference Hall was so thick you could cut it with a blade. Every chair was filled. Directors in dark suits, executives in smart dresses, key investors flown in from Abuja and Dubai. At the far end of the marble room, the company's golden phoenix emblem glittered against the silk backdrop. Beneath it stood the man everyone had gathered to witness, Mr. Agu Chukwudi Okoro, founder, father, and still the most feared mind in Nigerian business. But at that moment, every eye was on his son, Daniel Okoro, seated confidently at the center table, adjusting his cufflinks as if they were royal insignia. Outside, the press had been barred. Inside, no one spoke. They were waiting for the coronation. Daniel had spent the last 48 hours preparing a victory speech he knew would break the internet. He'd rehearsed in front of his mirror, practicing smiles, pauses, and nods of humility. He could already hear the applause. The headlines. From Playboy to Powerhouse, Daniel Okoro redeems the family name. He glanced to his left. No sign of Amara. Good. Let her stay wherever disgraced ex-employees go. Let her watch from the sidelines while he took what was rightfully his. The chairman rose slowly from his seat. He placed a small folder in front of him and adjusted the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, stakeholders, trusted advisors, thank you for your presence today. As promised, this meeting concerns the future of Okoro Global Holdings. All eyes sharpened. Daniel's smile widened. Mr. Agu continued. Our legacy is not measured only in money or mergers. It is measured in trust, in honor, and in the moral fabric that binds a company to its people. Daniel leaned forward, preparing to rise when called. But then Mr. Agu said, before we announce our next CEO, I must tell you a story. A ripple of confusion passed through the room. A few years ago, Agu began, I ran a private test. I left my wallet in a public place filled with $3,000. I did this 20 times. Only once was it returned. Daniel shifted, confused. The girl who returned it was homeless, starving, and yet she returned what did not belong to her. The doors of the hall swung open, and in walked Amara Rose Nwachukwu. Dressed in a navy blue fitted suit, her braided hair pinned back, she moved with the composure of someone who had walked through fire and come out golden. Murmurs erupted. Daniel froze. Amara walked to the front and stood silently beside Mr. Agu. Daniel, Agu said, do you remember what I told you the day you returned? Give me one more chance, Daniel had said, and Agu had nodded. Let's test what you have become. Indeed, Agu said now, facing the room. We gave Daniel that final chance. And while he partied, while he posed for photos, while he pretended to build, he was being watched. Gasps. Board members glanced at each other. Amara laid a file on the table. Daniel stood abruptly. What is this? Mr. Agu didn't answer. Amara opened the file. This is a complete audit of Daniel's financial activities since his return. These pages include forged invoices, unauthorized wire transfers, shell company bribes, falsified project reports, and a full breakdown of how 149 million naira was siphoned and used on non-business related expenses, including nightclubs, escorts, and illegal crypto bets. Gasps became shouts. The chief legal officer looked stunned. The director of finance covered her mouth. You're lying, Daniel barked, stepping forward. This is revenge. You forged those documents. Amara calmly slid a flash drive into the projector. On the screen, footage played. Daniel laughing in a club. Daniel bragging to friends. Daniel signing a forged invoice. Daniel mocking Amara. And then a secret recording began to play. Daniel's voice. If she ever talks, I'll bury her. That wallet story? I'll rewrite it. My father's old. He'll give me the company eventually. All I need to do is discredit her and play obedient son. Dead silence. Daniel's face turned pale. Enough, Agu said quietly. He faced his son. I gave you a sword, and you turned it into a dagger. Dad, please, Daniel stammered, sweat dripping down his temple, but Agu didn't flinch. I warned you. This was your test. You failed. Daniel's voice cracked. You fired her. You believed me. Mr. Agu's voice turned steel. We never fired Amara. That was part of the test. She agreed to go silent, to suffer shame, for your sake. We wanted to see if you would rise, or destroy. Daniel looked to the board. You can't do this. I'm the heir. I'm your blood. Agu stepped forward. You may be my blood, Daniel, but you are not my legacy. He turned to the room. And that is why I hereby name Amara Nwachukwu as the new chief executive officer of Okoro Global Holdings. The room erupted. Some gasped, some clapped, others simply sat in awe. Amara didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She bowed her head slightly. This company will be led not by pride, Agu said, but by principle. Daniel backed away. You can't do this. I'll sue. I'll ruin you. Agu's voice dropped to a whisper. Try, and I'll have you arrested for fraud, and you know I have the proof. Daniel stood frozen. Then realizing there was no rescue, no exit, no more lies to spin, he turned and stormed out, slamming the doors behind him. The phoenix on the banner behind him trembled slightly as the doors echoed shut. After the meeting, Amara stepped onto the rooftop terrace where the city stretched before her. The air smelled like rain, like rebirth. Mr. Agu joined her, silently. For a moment they said nothing. Then he spoke. "You may not be my daughter by blood," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "But you are the child I wish I had." Amara's throat tightened. "You believed in me, even when it looked like I failed." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't fail. You endured. That's what true leaders do." They stood side by side as Lagos pulsed below, a city of noise and pride and broken promises. But above it all, two people stood, tied not by blood, but by loyalty, truth, and fire-tested trust. And in the heart of it, the girl once dismissed as a street orphan now held the keys to an empire she had never asked for, but had earned. The morning after the boardroom storm, Lagos awoke to a new narrative, one nobody saw coming. News broke like a thunderclap. Amara Nwachukwu appointed CEO of Okoro Global Holdings. Fall of the Phoenix, Daniel Okoro, accused of fraud. The homeless girl who rose to power. Television anchors struggled to catch up. Radio hosts replayed snippets of the board meeting audio leaked from an anonymous source. The moment Daniel's voice was heard, admitting he planned to rewrite Amara's story, went viral within minutes. Even those who had once laughed at the wallet girl now whispered her name with awe. At the center of it all, Amara remained quiet. While the internet erupted, she sat alone in the CEO's private lounge, staring out at the lagoon, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea. Her face was calm, but her heart was a battlefield of emotions. She'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. Not yet. Meanwhile, Daniel Okoro was a prisoner in his own penthouse. His phones had stopped ringing. His friends had vanished like mist. Even the models who once lined up for his attention now ghosted him. He hadn't left the house since the meeting. Reporters were camped outside, drones flying overhead, waiting to catch a glimpse of the man who had tried to destroy the only woman who ever cared enough to plead on his behalf. He paced the living room, his mind unraveling. "How?" he muttered, over and over again. "How did she flip it? How did she outplay me?" He had underestimated her, not just her intelligence, but her resolve, her patience, her principles. He kicked over a chair and screamed. She was nothing, a stray, a charity case. But deep inside, where even he wouldn't admit it aloud, a different truth whispered, she deserved it. At Okoro Global, Amara called a closed meeting with the executive team. Gone were the days of marble podiums and self-congratulatory speeches. She stood in front of a simple whiteboard with 3 words written in bold black marker. Truth, people, purpose. "I will not lead this company the way Daniel tried to," she began. "And I will not be another cold CEO hiding behind glass walls." She looked each executive in the eye. "You all saw me fall. Some of you stayed silent. Some believed lies. But I didn't come here today to punish you. I came to invite you to rebuild." Silence. A few eyes dropped. One of the directors, Mrs. Oni, who had doubted Amara just weeks earlier, spoke first. "I was wrong," she said softly, "and I want to help." Others nodded, and just like that, a new era began, not with a parade, but with quiet conviction. Later that afternoon, Mr. Agu summoned Amara to the mansion. She arrived in a navy dress, hair tied back, the same way she had the first time she stepped into his office as a newly discovered talent. But this time the air felt different, weightier. He sat by the window overlooking the garden, wearing a simple caftan, no bodyguards, no assistant, just the fatherly man behind the empire. He gestured for her to sit. "Daniel sent a letter," he said. Amara blinked. "Apologizing?" Agu chuckled dryly, defending himself, blaming everyone but himself. But in the final paragraph, he said something that surprised me. He pulled a folded sheet from his pocket and read aloud. "I never hated her because she was poor. I hated her because she reminded me of who I used to be, before money poisoned me." Amara felt something ache in her chest. "Will you arrest him?" she asked. Agu was silent for a long time. "I should," he said. "He embezzled millions, deceived the board, nearly ruined this company." Amara waited. "But I won't," he continued, "not because he deserves mercy, but because you deserve peace, breathe. She didn't respond immediately. She only looked out the window at the same garden where Mr. Agu had once tested her. Let him go, she whispered. Let him live with what he almost destroyed. That's a prison deeper than any cell. Agu looked at her with admiration. You're a better person than I am. No, sir, she replied. I just remember what it felt like to be forgiven. They sat in silence. Then Mr. Agu stood and placed a small wooden box on the table. For you, he said. Amara opened it. Inside lay a key, ornate, bronze, antique-looking. It opens every door in this company, he said, smiling. Literally and symbolically. You're not just CEO now, Amara. He stepped forward and placed a hand over hers. Your family. The next day, Daniel quietly left Lagos. No farewell post, no camera crew, no final tantrum. Just a black SUV driving toward the airport. Destination unknown. But before he left, he mailed one item to the Okoro Global headquarters. It was his access card and a short note. Tell her she won, not because I lost, but because she never stopped being who she was. D.O.O. Amara read it alone in her office. She folded the note, locked it away, and whispered, Thank you. I needed that. Weeks passed. Amara's leadership began to bloom. She revived the paused housing projects, reinstated the scholarships, and created a new department focused on ethics and transparency, staffed by young people from underprivileged backgrounds. Staff morale returned, investors returned, even public confidence soared. And then came the most powerful moment yet. One morning, she was invited to speak at her old secondary school, the one she had been expelled from when she became homeless. She stood in front of hundreds of girls in green and white uniforms, many of them whispering in disbelief. That's the girl from the news. That's Amara. She used to be like us. Amara stepped onto the podium with tears in her eyes. She held up the very same Bible her mother had left her, the same one she carried when she walked the streets, hungry, barefoot, forgotten. This, she said, is all I had once. She paused. No house, no family, no one to believe in me. She looked up. But I had truth, and it took me further than money ever could. The students stood, applauding, cheering. And in that moment, Amara didn't feel like a CEO. She felt like a seed finally in bloom. That night, on the rooftop of the Okoro Global Tower, Amara stood beneath the stars. For the first time in years, the sky felt open. She whispered aloud, Mama, your daughter kept her hands clean. Behind her, the city pulsed. Before her, an empire stood. And deep within her, the voice that once whispered, do the right thing, now shouted in triumph. Because while Daniel sought power by force, Amara had earned it through fire. And the world would never forget her name. The sun rose over Abuja with a quiet strength. No fanfare, no trumpet blast, just golden fingers stretching gently over rooftops and treetops alike. It was Amara's first official day in her new position as Director of Community Impact, nationwide. But it wasn't the title that made this day feel different. It was the sense of arrival, the feeling that after a lifetime of struggle, she wasn't just standing on a stage. She was home. The headquarters in Jabi had been refurbished in silence. The walls were no longer whitewashed and sterile. Now they bloomed with framed photographs of the lives Okoro Global had touched. Children in new school uniforms, widows holding house keys, boreholes erupting in desert towns. In the center of the entrance hall stood a simple marble plaque with Amara's name engraved beneath the company motto, Integrity, Dignity, Change. She arrived before dawn, her navy blue blazer crisp, her hair braided in the same neat pattern she had worn the day she returned Mr. Agu's wallet. There was something sacred in that repetition, a reminder of the girl she used to be. Security saluted. Secretaries smiled. One intern bowed slightly, whispering, Welcome, Ma. Inside the boardroom, her executive team stood waiting. All eyes turned as she entered. She didn't walk in with the swagger of a CEO. She walked in like someone entering a chapel. She took her seat, not at the head of the table, but among them. I don't want titles, she said. I want impact. Later that afternoon, Amara stood before a crowd of journalists, students, and housing beneficiaries at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for Rose Gardens Phase 3, a sprawling neighborhood of pastel-painted flats, solar lighting, vocational training centers, and free clinics. As the ribbon fluttered to the ground and the children rushed forward to explore their new homes, Amara stepped to the podium. This time, no one laughed. No one doubted. They leaned in. "I once slept under a bridge," she began, voice steady, "because someone decided I didn't belong in a real home." A hush fell across the crowd. "I was told I had no future, no worth, but I found something greater than revenge. I found purpose." She gestured toward the houses. "These homes are not charity. They are justice. They are dignity for people who've been told they were invisible. And this," her voice softened, "is only the beginning." Applause erupted, children waved, and in that moment, Amara felt something rise within her. Not pride, not triumph, but peace. Later that evening, a private car pulled up in front of a modest compound in Mushin, the very house where Amara had once been thrown out, suitcase in hand, labeled a curse. It was quiet now. Time had dulled the paint and the memories, but some scars still echoed from its walls. Inside, Nkechi, her former stepmother, lay on a mat, a shawl draped over her legs. Her face was sunken, her body frail. Illness had done what karma often couldn't, softened a hard spirit. She didn't expect the knock at the gate. When it came, she barely stirred, until she saw her. Amara stepped in quietly, carrying a white envelope. Nkechi gasped, eyes wide, hand trembling. "Have you come to finish me?" she rasped. "No," Amara said calmly. "I've come to forgive you." Nkechi burst into tears. "I called you a witch. I told people you would die like your mother." Amara knelt beside her and took her hand. "You were wrong," she said softly. "But you were also broken." She opened the envelope. Inside was a medical referral to a private clinic and a bank check to cover full treatment. "No one deserves to die in pain," Amara said, "not even those who once caused it." And with that, she stood and left. Back in Abuja, Amara returned to her flat, one of the company-owned residences Mr. Agu had gifted her. As she entered, the warm smell of vanilla and cedarwood greeted her. On the dining table lay a small wrapped box. There was no name, no note, just a velvet ribbon tied in a perfect knot. She opened it slowly. Inside was a brass key, elegant, old, and beautifully etched. She recognized it instantly. It was the master key. The same one Mr. Agu had once said opened every door in the company. She looked up. Standing in the doorway of her kitchen, wearing his usual quiet smile, was Mr. Agu. "I had it polished," and he said, "Symbolic, of course. You've already opened doors that even I couldn't." She blinked back tears. "You didn't have to come all this way." "I did," he replied, "because today marks a new season." He handed her a second envelope. Inside, documents confirming her appointment not just as Director of Community Impact, but as Vice Chair of the Okoro Global Foundation. She stared at him, stunned. This is everything." He nodded. "No, Amara, this is only the beginning." Later that night, Amara stood on her balcony. The Abuja skyline sparkled like constellations stitched into the fabric of her life. Below, the streets buzzed with music, dance, and promise. She opened her old journal, the one she used to write in when she had nothing. She flipped to the last page, wrote in careful strokes, "I didn't keep the money. I didn't lose my soul. And now the world knows what Mama always told me. That clean hands might be empty for a while, but they never stay empty forever." She closed the book. Then she looked up at the stars. They were no longer distant. They were reflections of her own light. As the credits of the story roll silently in the reader's heart, a lone girl in tattered clothes walks down a dim street in Lagos. She sees a small wallet lying on the ground. Her eyes widen. She picks it up slowly, opens it. Stacks of dollars, a business card. Okoro Global Holdings' director, Amara Nwachukwu. She looks around. No one is watching. She hesitates. Then, with a trembling hand, she walks toward the nearest police post and says, "Please, I want to return this." The cycle begins again, and Amara's legacy, one of the truth, honor, and unseen heroes, continues. Moral of the story: power may be inherited, but legacy is earned, and the hands that return what isn't theirs will one day hold what the world never believed they could. Because character, once planted, bears fruit no storm can destroy. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please share your thoughts and tell us what learned in the comment section. We would be very glad to read them. And guess what? There is another powerful educative story coming up in a few days. So please subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications bell so you'll be the first to watch when we upload it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button and share with your family and friends. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.